All right. Well, it's 3 o'clock Los Angeles time. Welcome to Levi's Digital Voyage live stream on the Commodore 64 Ultimate keyboard flex repair. So if you watched my video, which I've linked to in the description of this video, the review of the Commodore 64 Ultimate, you know that my review was pretty glowingly positive of this machine. It's the new FPGA recreation, reimagining of the Commodore 64. There's 3 different models. Of course, there's the beige model, there's this model, the Starlight Edition, and then there's also the Founders Edition, which is basically this but with gold keycaps and gold tint to this clear case. My understanding is that the keyboard, in order to make it glow, which, let's see if I can probably turn it on right now, and I'll turn off my lights, and you can kind of see what that means. Yeah, so in order to make it glow like that, and the light to shine through the keys, the PCB that holds the keyboard, together. Let's just turn it off here and bring the lights back up. The PCB that backs the key switches, that holds it all together, has to be transparent. And so in order to do that, or at least translucent, it has to be somewhat thinner than it would normally be. So as a side effect, or as a feature, if you ask the folks at Commodore, this has a little bit of spring to it, and you can see that on camera. The original one that I got had a lot more spring, and it was due to a defective manufacturing process. So this is my replacement. And honestly, I'm not doing a lot of typing on this. If I were to be programming or doing something extensive, it's not super ergonomic to begin with because it's an original bread bin design. But the key switches feel nice, and if that bugs you, and you've got one of these, and that flex or springy, cushiony response bugs you, there are a couple solutions out there, and it kind of bugs me a little bit, even though I don't do a lot of typing. I'd like it to be a little bit firmer. So what I'm going to do today is install one of the options for a 3D printed support brace or backer that will try to make this a little bit more rigid. Now, originally, if you saw my Commodore 64 Ultimate review, I had mentioned that there was a 3D printed support brace from Retrofrog, and this is it. These are the pieces. This is a two-piece design, and you have to unscrew the case, and then using the existing screws, you fix this in place, and it worked really well. Well, Jim Drew, who's the fellow that designed this, and I incorrectly called it the mech board in my video. It's actually a bling board, or similar to Jim Drew's Bling Board 64 design. It's the keyboard that's a recreation of the original C64 keyboard. The designer of it said, yeah, that's all well and good to use these. However, there's a chance that the way that this fits onto the circuit board, these pieces that touch the board could eventually wear out the traces and damage your Commodore 64 keyboard. So not wanting that to happen, I pulled these out. I think it would take some time for that to happen, but not wanting that to happen, I pulled those out, and Jim Drew created his own design that worked around the traces on the board, and here it is. This is Jim's official Bling Board's, well, he's not calling it the Bling Board, but Commodore 64 Ultimate keyboard brace. It's a 3D printed brace. Now, the reason I'm pulling it out of this priority mail envelope is because while these were quite easy to print, the Retrofrog version was quite easy to print. Jim's was a little bit harder to print. You'll see it doesn't lay flat on the build bed, so there's lots of supports needed. Unless you print it on a diagonal orientation, you might get away without printing that. But in any event, I tried multiple passes to print it on my Elegoo 3D printer, and I couldn't make it happen. So my friend Alex in Colorado offered to print this for me on his printer. And Alex, if you're in the chat, I'm being told the audio seems a little bit low. Not sure what I can do about that. I'll just try to speak up a little bit. I didn't use my regular mics. I figured I'm so close to the iPhone here, it might be easier just to talk right into the iPhone. So. But thanks for that, Matt. Maybe next time I'll try my lav mic. So Alex printed this for me on his printer. And Alex, if you're in the chat, let me know what printer you printed this on, because I don't remember. You told me, I'm sure. I think it's a bamboo. I think it's a bamboo printer, but I'm not exactly sure which one. So we're just gonna try it. It's gonna be kind of a quick live stream. I'll just show you. I mean, I'm not pressing particularly hard. I'm, typing kind of normal. It bounces. If you were to really push on it, it would go down. So there's definitely a certain amount of flex here that we want to address with the official 3D printed support brace. On the back side of the C64 Ultimate, just like on the original Commodore 64, there's 3 screws. The nice thing about these cases, this is a Retrofusion case. That's the company that made these for Commodore International. And Retrofusion has some really nice cases. They've managed to recreate the original case in what I think is probably a more durable plastic. They've got solid colors, they've got clear, translucent, and the case that they used for the Starlight is one that I've seen up close. And then I also have a purple Retrofusion case that I bought before this Commodore 64 Ultimate came out, and they're just really nice cases. One of the things I like about them is on the inside. Let me undo that. The bamboo. Alex just wrote in the chat. It's a bamboo printer that he printed this on and managed to get it to work. So that's good. Let's see here. There's the board. And what I wanted to show you on here it is that unlike the original 1980s Commodore cases, these actually have like knurled, threaded brass threads that go into the posts here. So no matter how many times you take it apart, you're not putting in self-tapping plastic screws, which to me is an incredible upgrade from what was. And I believe, if I remember correctly, all of the screws, including the keyboard and everything, were all held in with self-tapping plastic screws on the original. And if you're going to work on, I mean, they weren't intended to be, originally they weren't intended to be taken apart. But the ones that are around now, people are taking them apart all the time to mess with them, to repair them, to hack them. So it's nice if you've got it in a case where if you're going to take it apart, that you're not self-tapping the plastic every time. Okay, so here's the back of the keyboard. I'll try pressing on it, and you can see, I don't know if it's possible to see the flex there. But yeah. So I actually am not sure how this is supposed to go on. If it's supposed to go this way or that way. So what I'm going to do is pull up, when in doubt, let's go into Jim Drew's website here. Jim Drew C64U, and we'll search for print, and let's just see. I know I linked to it on my YouTube, so let's just go into YouTube, the YouTube app. The problem is that yeah, here we go. Here's a video of a video. Oh, Alex said, this print is quite challenging due to the required placements of supports. Printing supports in an alternate material to the print, so PLA and PETG, helped a lot, but it took a little bit of work to figure out. So even for Alex, who's gotten pretty good at printing these kinds of things, he said it was a little bit of work to get it going. It looks like this is PETG, so the supports were probably PLA. His bamboo printer can print in 2 different types of materials, which makes it a lot easier to print and separate the supports. So sometimes if you're not familiar with 3D printing, you want to print something like this, but you can't just print something in free space. Everything has to be anchored to the build plate. So you build up a little bit of support material, but then if you use the same exact material type, it can be difficult to break the supports off when all is said and done. So printing them out of dissimilar plastics makes it a lot easier, and Alex managed to get it done. This is a really nice print, and you can feel like just how sturdy the PETG is. PLA can be a little bit tricky. So let me see if I can find my, yeah, here we go. So Jim Drew's official, and this is all in the description. If you don't see it now, you might have to reload the live stream because I just updated it, but I put a link to both models, the Retro Frog and Jim Drew's, in there. So, all right, so here's a picture. All right, so if we look at, he's got his cable down here, and then this goes like that. So that looks like the orientation. Do I see that correct? See it correctly here? I don't want to jam this up. Let's see. I don't want to jam up the keyboard LED connection here. And it looks like that goes there. Yeah, that's how it goes. I think that's right. And then, yeah. So let's, before I do that, let me take the little, it's got a little shorty USB connector here. Let's plug that in and do it exactly like it's shown in Jim's picture. This is a picture of the model. You can kind of see he's got, oops. Yeah. Well, it keeps scanning, but if you end up printing this yourself, you'll find he's got a good picture on the Thingiverse page of exactly how it should all look when it's installed. So in his picture, this shows this threaded like that, and that goes in like that. And you'll notice that these little stands here, these standoffs here, they line up in a way where they're not touching the traces on the board. And like I said, that's on purpose because Jim's concern was that if people started printing their own 3D supports, that they might touch on the board in a way that actually makes the situation worse. I mean, I guess long term, I'd be a little bit concerned about would constant flexing eventually cause the plastic to crack or break or something. Might take another. Although that even doesn't. So let's see. The screws that we need to remove are 1, 2, 3, 4. And it looks like they're slightly recessed here, which makes sense. And then there are other screws, which I don't know why he's drilled those holes there, but you'll notice that these additional screw holes line up with holes that are here that are not threaded. There's nothing behind them. So could be for a different application. But let's just start with the factory screws. And we'll just remove them. And we'll do a little comparison before and after. I was just at VCF SoCal, Vintage Computer Festival down in Orange County, California. And I brought this with me, and a lot of people came up to me and said they'd ordered one and they hadn't gotten it yet because they'd ordered, within the past few weeks, and they're kind of making them in batches. So they were excited to come to the show just to see what they were actually going to get. And then the second day, someone got a Founders Edition, one of the other exhibitors, and he brought that in. So I got to see the Founders Edition. And one of the big questions everybody's asked is, the Founders Edition and this Starlight Edition both have the clear keyboards. Is this flex thing present on the Founders Edition as well? And I thought it was a lot less. It was a lot less significant on the Founders Edition. So maybe they did some changes to the production process. I know the Founders Edition has been delayed by 2 or 3 months as compared to this. Mine I ordered in July, and then it shipped, and I arrived just before Christmas as promised. That was their goal, was to get these shipped in people's hands around the world by Christmas. And so mine was there just a few days before Christmas. They've delayed the Founders Edition for a couple reasons. I think there were some issues with the gold keycaps, and they went back and they had to redo some of that. And then with I don't know if in the process they also addressed some of the flexing here, but let's see. Let's put this together. But it certainly, the Founders Edition that was at the show seemed a bit different than mine, in that it was a little bit more rigid. So let's see. Oh, welcome, Logan. I see you in the chat there. Got about 17 people watching right now, which is pretty cool because I just announced this a little more than a half an hour ago. So if you're listening and you're out there and watching, join us in the chat. Just let me know that you're there. And of course, if you got any comments on it, share them. Alex had said, so is this where I learned that it didn't print correctly and the screw holes don't line up, or because of scaling or something? But no, Alex, it looks like we're safe. The screw holes line up and scaling looks to be correct. I don't want to screw it too tight. That's why I was going to use my, electric screwdriver, but I decided not to because it just seemed like I should do this by hand. Okay, that's good. All right, pretty easy. Oh yeah, wow. Okay, so let's put it back together the right way. But I can already tell that this is a significant improvement over the original. It's a little bit tricky because this is such a short cable, and I want to make sure. Oh, yeah, I want to grab my. Yeah, there we go. Alex said in the chat, for a new company producing a passion project, their ability to deliver manufactured units seems pretty impressive. Yeah, I would agree. I mean, granted, these projects, the Retrofusion case, the Blingboard 64, the motherboard itself, Gideon's Logic out of the Netherlands had made the motherboard, had been making the motherboard for a number of years, but they were in small batches, and so to gear up production, bring all these projects together, unify the whole thing, and deliver it in a box that looked like Commodore, the original Commodore company had made it, was pretty cool and pretty impressive. Logan says he sure hopes the brackets work and that it stops flexing as hard. Yeah, I think it will. So now everything is together. And yeah, no, that's a definite improvement. And honestly, it adds a little bit of weight, which I kind of like. Oh yeah, no, that's a huge improvement. And I don't want to judge it. You might see a little bit of bounce, but that's because I haven't put the 3 screws back in yet. So I don't want to even unfairly misrepresent this. Is there a way to fairly misrepresent something? I don't know. I don't want to unfairly represent this as bouncing, because there's a little bit of give until these 3 screws are installed as well. But I was just too eager to give it a try. Retro Guy UK 75 said, I thought Perry Fractic, the CEO of Commodore, did a lot of testing himself on those designs before main production kicked in. I'm surprised there are issues. I think it was, from based on what I've seen from what the company has said, the new Commodore company has said, I think they noticed this and they were kind of like, this is acceptable. It's going to flex a little bit because it has to be a thinner PCB. But when it got into people's hands, there were varying degrees of flexibility. So maybe the early ones were, it was pretty consistent. Maybe it was more like the Founders Edition that I got to try out at VCF. And then as they got into mass production, there was probably some difference in tolerances as they were producing these by the tens of thousands. They sold 20,000 units, not just of all of them. I think beige was the most popular, and then these and the Founders were were less so, but still a fair number of them. But as they were producing them, I imagine that there were some changes in exactly how it felt. But that's a lot better. And interestingly, the PCB is like this. So when you think about the middle of the keyboard, the most flexible key for me before, and I should have noted this, but I was always kind of going right for the J, because the J and the K and the L, these were the most flexible, right? And you can see now that they're the least flexible. It's because they're the center of the keyboard PCB. This isn't the keyboard PCB. This whole thing is. So the center is actually lined up with the center screw hole. So JKL would be the most flexible, as they're in the center of it. Polymat said, Jim's bracket, 2 pieces. I thought there was one small one that sits over the function keys. Maybe Alex can weigh in. I don't think so. I thought it was just the one. Let's pull up Jim's website here again, and just to be sure. But I'm pretty sure it's just the one. Oh yeah, look, there's a little bracket that fits over the function keys, because they do flex a little bit. Thanks for pointing that out, Matt. I missed that too. I was so concerned about printing the other piece, the big one, which was such a challenge. But there's a tiny one that goes over the function keys, and there's a little bit of give over there. So maybe we should try that. Maybe we'll do another live stream and we'll add that. I'll see if I can print that myself. I bet that probably is a little bit easier to print, but yeah, that can go over the function keys as well. I never noticed that. I mean, those never really bugged me as much. You don't really use them as much. It was more the main keyboard. But you know what? Over here, there's a little bit of flex on the return key, and you can see it's moving the function keys. So that's a good call, Matt. Thank you for bringing that up. I don't see as much flex. Well, a little bit on this side, I guess, but certainly where it was the worst in the center is a lot better. So I'd be happy with that. Let me see if there's any other comments. Oh, I think we're good. So yeah, unless anybody has any questions or wants to see anything on this, I'll probably cut the stream short here, because I'm really pleased with the outcome, and I think even that little residual bit there on the right will be improved by the little strip that we can put there. But I'm happy knowing that this is Jim Drew approved, it's Commodore approved, and that I'm not going to be damaging the PCB, and it feels just a whole lot more rigid now. So if you've got one of these, whether it's this one or a Starlight with a flexible PCB, honestly, I would find a way to get this printed. If you don't have a 3D printer, you can go on like different websites. Like, I mean, I'm not sponsored by any of these folks, but like I think PCBWay does it, and there's got to be some others where you can upload the STL file, the model file, and then you can get them printed and then professionally, and then they'll ship it to you. And I would imagine that as time goes on, eBay sellers, Etsy sellers will probably start making these, and maybe even Commodore themselves will start selling it on their website once they get a little bit more geared up in production and whatnot. But in the meantime, it's a good homebrew solution in the absence of sort of an official product. Just the 3D printing alone should get you most of the way there. So thanks for tuning in. You want me to light it back up? All right, somebody said let's light it back up and see how it looks. Yeah, that's a good idea. Let's check it out and make sure that the lighting isn't affected, which Jim promised it wouldn't be. Make sure that the lighting isn't affected by the brace itself. No, it looks good. It looks good. Let me plug in my monitor and I'll I'll make some music here with it. I've got it on SID music. The lights are synced to the SID. So if we play some music, let's see. Why am I not seeing anything on my screen? Let's try HDMI. My analog monitor may not be plugged in. Oh, maybe I have it in PAL mode. That's the other thing. All right, let me see if I can show you guys. I'll put my Video setup. Yeah, it's an NTSC, which we want. Let's do NTSC 50. Save changes to Flash. And then we'll go to, I have a custom kernel ROM running. They normally don't look like that. And then we'll go to the disk file browser. The internal SD card has the Commodore software on it. For me anyway, I copied it to an internal. And then we'll go multi-SID, the Tuneful 8. Run me first. It does a little configuration. Make sure that everything is set up the way it needs to be to do multiple SID chips. And then we'll run. Make sure that this is. Here it comes. This is just coming out of my my analog monitor speakers. That's cool. Can you guys hear the music okay? So long. Thanks for watching.